Well, good evening. Thank you for coming out. Beautiful evening. We don't have to shovel it. And that's where gratitude comes in, and attitude, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So why am I here tonight? Well, there's several reasons. But first, I would like to thank you for supporting your educational system. It's very important for children to know that mom and dad, or just mom or dad, or grandparents, heard this old lady speak. Sometimes they go home and parents cannot be part of the conversation because they don't have enough knowledge. And it's important for you to know what kind of speakers your schools bring in. I could have horns growing out of my head. You wouldn't know unless you're here. So before I'm going to take you down on my journey, I would like to share with you how 3 legacies affected my life, and how legacies that we pass down to our children shapes their lives, their behavior, their character. It was no different than me. So, my parents got married 6 months before the First War ended. They lived in a winterized shed. And when I think about this, it always reminds me when my husband and I came to Canada 66 years ago this month. We didn't speak a word of English, and we heard people say, as we picked up the language, the Jews have all the money. How come my parents missed the boat? Well, I grew up without money. I didn't know what money was when I was a young teenager, 10, 12, 14, but I knew what family was. So now my parents live in a winterized shed. Who lived there before? The groundkeeper. This shed was behind a huge estate. He was taken into the war. How my parents got that place, my mom didn't share with us. So they have 3 children. Sarah was 4. Martin was 2.5. Regina was 1. She was unwell. She got pregnant. It was not difficult those days because they didn't have television. Now people have other things to do. She got pregnant, went to the doctor, and the doctor told her she must have an abortion. In the environment that I was raised, abortion was unheard of. So what did my mom do? She stayed in bed 8 months. So big deal, I survived. Look what the world would have missed. The important thing here is what I learned from my mom already pre-birth. Struggled for survival, pre-birth. What I learned from my mom kept me alive in the camps. What I learned from my mom, I live by today and every day. Never to give up hope, never. Courage, she had courage. It took courage to stay in bed 8 months when there is no electricity, no in the plumbing, and she's in bed. I made sure that I passed that down to my sister. The legacy she passed down to me. Every evening before I go to bed when I'm home, I thank my mom for that legacy she passed down. My father's legacy was very unlike my mom's. He was prejudiced against public education. and we were not allowed to go to school. I was surprised to see, and you saw today, how many kids put their hands up because they don't like to come to school. What I tell them, they should be ashamed of themselves, because thousands of miles away from here, when I was their age, I used to stand by the window crying. Why can't I go to school like other kids? They were fundamentalists. They didn't allow us to go to school. So how did that affect me? I became a liar. A young widow living north of Toronto, and I didn't know how to read or write. And when I used to go to the bank, I said to the teller, "Can you help me? I forgot my glasses." How long can you forget your glasses? I used to stand in front of the mirror and look at myself and say, "Why are you so afraid of the truth? If somebody doesn't like you, it's not your problem, it's their problem." So one day I come into the bank. This is Richmond Hill, 9,000 people living there. Everybody knew each other. The cats and the dogs knew each other. And the same teller, and I said to her, "Can you help me? I don't know how to read or write." Well, of course, her response was very positive. So what happened that day? That day, I took the first step to walk through that door, a door that was always open. I was just afraid what I might find on the other side. Fear. And let me share with you what I found on the other side. I was 39, 40 at that time. I found that the sun was shining. It still is today. Because I'm free. And only the truth can set us free. The truth. I didn't want to continue to be a liar. I knew I had to free myself from negativity that my father passed down to all of us, all 6 children. 4 of them were not bothered by it. They were good little followers. But my younger brother and I, we caused our parents a lot of stress. The opposite is also true. We were also stressed because we were searching for a more liberal way of life, more acceptance, more blending in with others. And that wasn't a good thing. So I wrote about my father. I went to the camp where he passed away, hoping there will be a closure. I had to release him, hopefully that he did the same. Now then, how do you deal with the third legacy? Hitler. You can't put your glasses on. It won't help you because it's in here. Just what I'm doing, that's how I deal with it. Go where the calling is, whether it's Cold Lake, Alberta at the Air Force Base, or Baseborn, the military, or the OPP headquarters, or the Arctic, wherever the calling is, I'll be there. And I have been. Because I've made it my mission. That's how I deal with the third legacy. Now, most of you in here are familiar when the war started. I was a young teenager in Hungary. And before I take you down on that journey, I would like you to look at a couple of slides that has to do with leadership. Maybe it should come off on the side so everybody can see it. Other than the young people here won't recognize this face, but the adults should. Now, those people were both leaders. Now, what was the difference between Gandhi and Hitler. The choices they made. We all make choices, and those choices takes us where we are. There's no difference here or anywhere else. Every day we make choices. The choices we make today will affect us tomorrow. Gandhi struggled for human rights, dignity for his people, led his people to freedom, from darkness to light. Hitler did the opposite. He led his people from light to darkness. Germany was a beautiful country. People that had money used to go on holidays there until Hitler came to power. And then things changed. How? Boys at age 10 were taken from their families without permission, put them in boot camps. They were brainwashed how to brutalize others. In the middle of the war, girls were taken from their families, went through the same process. They became the Hitler Youth. In this book, my first one, the autobiography, is a letter from a German girl, grade 11 student. Her name is Heidi Reinhardt. After my presentation, she wrote an essay, handed it in to her teacher. Her name is Bonnie Dart. And her teacher said, let's give Mrs. Olson a copy with permission so she can use it. So that's the reason why it's in here. She talks about her grandfather that was a Hitler Youth. Her grandparents came to Canada under assumed name. And where did they settle? In Muskoka. So you never know who your neighbor is. So what she's saying, when a child is taken away at that young age, and his or her life is controlled by others, what can he do? Not much. He just follows instruction. But then they came to Canada as adults. When you come into a country to make a new life for yourself, you leave your behavior behind you and your issues. But they didn't. He brutalized his own family, became an alcoholic, committed suicide. Then she talks about my choices. I watched my parents disappear. Out of 11 of us, 2 of us survived. So now I can go on and be bitter and angry and hate and be depressed. Or get off my butt and go where the calling is, in hope that somewhere I will touch a life of one of your children, one. Because that has been my mission for the last 21 years. One child in every school. The legacy that Hitler passed down, second and third generation now are not having an easy time with it. I'm going to show you something, what a student in Ottawa gave me. It's important that you see it. Okay, come on. I should have taken it out before. Oh, got it. Okay. This is a Catholic high school in Ottawa, St. Patrick's. 1,550 students. 96 languages. So the student came up and hugged and said things, and one student came up, his fist was closed, and he said, I want to apologize for what my ancestors did. And I said to him, you're only responsible for what you do, not for what they did. He was very, very emotional. He said, I want to give you something. I said, okay. So he opens his fist. A Celtic cross. I said, okay, I will accept it. Because at another school, they gave me a painting of John Paul II. So I said, this will go nice beside it. But he went on saying, my mom gave it to me before she passed away. And I said to him, you have to hang on to this because this is the last thing she gave you. No, no, no. He was very, very emotional. I said, okay, I will take it. I promise you, when I'm in a Catholic school or a church, I will wear it for your mom. 2 weeks ago tonight, I was at a Catholic church in Ottawa, and I wore it for his mom. The point I'm trying to make here, that's the legacy that Hitler passed down. That's how that legacy affected the new generation of German children. Leadership. How does the child become a leader? A boy will follow his father, see what his father is doing, his behavior, among other things. And a girl, hopefully, will do it to her mom. Well, I always share this one about a student in London, Ontario, how that student became a leader. In the hallway, that student overheard some of the kids saying that Hitler did a good job to kill the Jewish people. He went to his teacher, and the teacher said, ignore it. Well, he didn't. He was crying. He went to the principal, and the principal called his mom, come on, pick up your son. She called me for advice, and I told her to go to the superintendent. In that office, there was a principal and a grade 8 student, but there was only one leader. How did that young man become a leader? The family came from Denmark. And that the legacies in 1692 were passed down to the Danes. All religions, culture, everybody equal. That's what those children brought into Canada with their parents. Equality. Not preoccupied with this religion, this color, First Nations, whatever. We're all part of one family. The human family, one part. One universe, there isn't another one, at least that I know of. There might be somewhere hidden, but I am not aware of it. So we will make a commitment to our children. We must. Because the legacies that is passed down to them right now is shaping their behavior and their character. It isn't something that, oh well, they work it out when they get older. No, they take it with them. Because the superintendent passes down his legacies to the assistant to the principal, and it withers all the way down. Somehow, we need to pay more attention to those behaviors. Should be in my corner where I'll be safer. Okay. So what does a good leader do? A good leader helps others. where a poor leader are bullies and hurt other people. There's no get away from that. And so do bystanders. Now, mentioned 1939, September the 1st, Germany occupied Poland. So a young teenager in Hungary, very naive, thinking the war will be over soon. It lasted 6 years. In those 6 years, 6 million Jewish people were murdered. 5 million others that were not Jews were also murdered. Catholic priests were hung in Poland. Why did they hang them? They were hiding Jewish children. Somebody was squealing, told the Nazis, and they murdered them. 1.5 million children under the age of 15 were murdered. And those children were registered children. In Eastern Europe, not every child was registered at birth, and I'm part of that product. 3 of us were registered, 3 were not. So what historians are saying, there is no way of knowing how many more than 1.5 million. Also what historians are debating, how many pregnant women took their unborn babies into the gas chamber? There is no way of knowing. Who died first, the mother or the unborn baby? They didn't come to any conclusion about that. 5 of those children were my nieces, a 3.5-year-old, a 2-year-old, 1-year-old, 6 months, and a 2-month-old baby. In 1996, I made it my mission to speak for all children, not just the Jewish children, all children, because there were 50,000 gypsies, the Roma people that were also murdered in Auschwitz. Their voices were silenced by hate. They cannot speak for themselves. Somebody has to. March the 19th, 1944, the Nazi regime occupied Hungary. I'm 19. There was no war between Hungary and Germany. They just walked in overnight. In the morning, when my father came home from the synagogue, he's saying to my mom, there is soldiers walking on the street with a different colored uniform. But they knew, but they didn't share it with us. From that day on, my parents didn't allow us girls to go outside. Couldn't understand why. They knew why, because they knew what happened in 1938 in Czechoslovakia. Truckloads of young Jewish girls, teenagers, were shipped to the front for the soldiers to rape them. As the front moved eastward, they were murdered. They found them in the fields. And that was the reason why my mom wouldn't allow us to go outside. At this point, we live in 2 rooms because there were 2 more children born after me, but still no electricity, no indoor plumbing. At this time, there were 19 of us in 2 rooms, sharing 1 wooden toilet outside. Water for drinking had to be brought in from the square a block away. Well, that wasn't that unusual those days. Many people were poor. They didn't have electricity or indoor plumbing, but that was okay. Some of us slept on the floor, and that was okay too, because I had a mom, I had a dad, I had brothers, I had sisters, I had a grandfather I adored. He was my mentor. He lived in Romania. My father was Romanian. It didn't last very long. In this book is a map where 24,000 Jewish people are locked up in 6 blocks. 13,000 were original inhabitants. 11,000 were forced in from the villages. We didn't have to move because the area I lived in was mostly populated with Jewish people, and they created the ghetto. That's part of it. May the 15th came an order to pack our bags. They told us we are being shipped to Germany to work in a brick factory. So we didn't have much to pack. Lined up outside, they marched us to the railway station, which was 7 kilometers away, where endless rows of boxcars were waiting. Now, what happened in the boxcars? We were packed in like sardines in a can. Standing room only. Between 100 and 110 people. 2 pairs. One had water in it for drinking, and the other pair was to be used as a toilet. People started to die from lack of oxygen. Children crying. Mothers couldn't feed their children. I see the images of my mom. As she found a corner in the boxcar, she was squatting down, hugging my sister's 3 little girls. She died in January from a mosquito bite. She had encephalitis. My mom hugging them. She was crying. I asked my mom, "Why are you crying?" She said, "I'm not crying for me. I have lived." She was 48. "I'm crying for all of the children." She said she couldn't understand, if they're taking us to a brick factory to work, why are they taking the elderly and the disabled, pregnant women, babies? She had a feeling that they were lying, and they were. May the 19th, we arrived to destination. Hungarian Jews arriving at Auschwitz-Birkenau. I'm 19. I knew of a country called Poland. Never heard of Auschwitz. It didn't take very long to find out where it was and what they did there. Only till the cattle cars were unbolted from the outside, as they were locked down, barred down. Nobody could escape. A smell that hit us was nauseating. Black smoke covered the skies, high towers, machine guns, electric fences, guards everywhere with rifles. I turned to my mom and I said, "Where do we work here? You didn't have to be Einstein to figure it out. It wasn't a brick factory. Auschwitz-Birkenau was a killing factory. 1.2 million were murdered in Auschwitz-Birkenau, including most of my family." At that point, I held the hand of my oldest niece. When Sarah died, I made a commitment, I will raise her. Her name was Judy. My mom had in her arm was the 1-year-old, Hedy, the 2-year-old Kathy was hanging on to my mom's skirt. Beside my mom was my brother's wife with a 2-month-old baby. My sister Regina had a 6-month-old baby. Miracle number 1 is about to happen. A prisoner came over. In Yiddish, he whispered, "Give the child to an older woman." He didn't tell me why. And I wasn't about to let go of her hand, not until he came back the 3rd time. Had I not let go of Judy's hand, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would have gone where most of my family went, except at that point I didn't know where they were sent. Hungarian Jews lining up for selection process. For what purpose? They didn't tell us. We came to the gate where the angel of death was standing, Dr. Joseph Mengele. He didn't speak to us. He had a lavand in his hand, and with that he pointed, left or right. And that's how he decided who will live or who shall die. Beside me was my youngest sister, 1 month short of being 17, and other healthy-looking young females were ordered to the right. All others, and I mean all, to the left. I turned my head to the left. I wanted to see where my mom was. But it was too late. Never at that moment would I have thought that I will never see her. Never. And we are moving out towards the field, and I'm moving to the left, and I don't see her. The moment I didn't see my mom, a sadness that I had not been able to get rid of, even after 72 years, 73 years. I wanted to give my mom a hug. I wanted to tell her how much I love her. I also wanted to tell her, I'm so sorry that I disobeyed you. It was too late. I have made it my mission to ask your children never ever to go to bed angry because your mom or your dad won't let you go somewhere or do something. Never. We can never ever resolve issues with anger. Never. Dialogue helps. I used to go to bed crying. We were only allowed to play with our cousins. If I wanted to play with somebody else down the street, they were not religious Jews, so my mom would say no, and I used to go to bed crying, and that upset her. Did that help? No. I wish I had someone telling me there wasn't a very good way to behave. Today, I'm asking your children, when you go home, give your mom and your dad, give them a hug. Tell them you love them. Do it while you can. Don't wait till it's too late. Why was it too late for me? They gathered them in the forest near the gas chamber. Within 2 hours of arrival, some historians say that 90% were murdered, 10% were spared for slave labor. Some say 70% were murdered within 2 hours of arrival. They were screaming for water. Here is what the guards told them. Hurry up. Get in there. After you have a shower, you come out and you're going to have water and coffee. But make sure you hang up your clothes and you tie your shoelaces together so you can find them when you come out. After 20 minutes, it was dead silent. It took 20 minutes for them to dine there. Powder Zyklon B with other chemicals were used to produce cyanide. That powder came through the shower heads, some along the wall through pipes. It settled on the floor, and it forms a gas, and the gas rises. Children died first. They found that some of the children's heads were crushed because their adult bodies fell on them. They also found scratch marks on the dead bodies on their back because they were climbing on top of each other. The higher up they were still a little bit of air to breathe. If somebody was still breathing, they were shot. Our hair, as you will see, was cut off in the bathhouse. When the dead women were pulled out of the gas chamber, their hair was cut off. Why would they cut off dead women's hair? Tons of human hair were shipped to Germany to manufacture felt. Socks for the U-boat soldiers. If somebody's ring didn't come off, the finger came off with it. If he had a gold crown, it was pulled out. And then came the crematorium, the ovens. And that's what we smell day and night, human flesh burning. Our families. One day, one of the gas chambers ran out of pellets. That day, they took 5 toddlers alive, put them in the ovens. A grandmother walking with her 3 grandchildren, she doesn't realize she's walking towards the gas chamber. Dr. Joseph Mengeles Experiment Hospital, where they experimented on 4,000 twins. 90% of those children were Jewish. All Jewish children that were alive until 1939 in Eastern Europe, 90% were murdered. They did not want a future Jewish generation. Some of those children were sewn together back to back to see how long they can survive. They were injected with tuberculosis, other viruses, through radiation and high voltage. They made sure that a male will never father a child and that a female will never bear one. Approximately 148 survived out of the 4,000. After July the 8th of 1944, there were no more selections for slave labor. Adolf Eichmann was in charge of the Hungarian Jews. And I'm quoting what he said. We must finish the job we started to do. Late summer of 1944, no more selections for slave labor. As the transport arrived, they were straight to the gas chamber. One day, half a dozen German civilians arrived and prepared us for slave labor. They ordered us to go to the bathhouse. While we were waiting outside, we witnessed something. A human cargo was sitting on the tracks. There were guards standing there and prisoners. The prisoner's job was, as the people got out of the boxcar, to lift them up and throw them on the truck, like you would a piece of firewood. Nobody climbed on the truck. They were thrown on top of each other, heading for the gas chamber. In the middle of the truck was an elderly man standing, reminded me of my grandfather in his late 70s. In Hebrew, he was calling for God over and over and over. I knew some prisoners, they were very disappointed that God didn't send them help. When you stop and think for a minute, can I or anyone else blame God for the choices men have made? I can't. There were 339 camps. 6 of those camps were killing centers. Men that built them, not God. It had been written that we were granted free will, and we have accepted that free will. Therefore, the choices we make are ours. We can't blame. Miracle number 2 is about to happen there at this election. But I didn't find that out till 2001. I was on a speaking tour for a week in Eastern Ontario, and a mother came to the hotel. She had dinner with me, and she said, I printed these pages off the website. I didn't have a computer. You might like to read it. So I went up to my room. She left. I was shocked. And that I told the kids to go on the website to have a look at it. It's called The Alphabet of Auschwitz. And their activities at this election. Anyone that had arrived with a scar from surgery or any other images was immediately sent to the gas chamber. So how does that apply to me? They told us to take our clothes off. So these young females, most of them in that group from a religious environment, they bunched their clothes up and stood like so. Why? I don't know. I took my clothes off, hung it on my right arm. Now, 2 things happened here. Prior to being there, I never knew of a place called Auschwitz-Birkenau. And I certainly didn't know that you can't have a scar. 1 month before we were occupied, I had my appendix out. Why did I hang my clothes on my right arm? Was it a coincidence? I doubt it. It wasn't my time to go. I needed to be here tonight. They gave us a gray blanket. took us to the Hungarian women's camp. We're lining up for our daily ration, 1 piece of bread, 70% sawdust. If you wanted to live, you ate it. Soup was like dirty water. Why was it dirty? It was made out of the peeling of the potatoes that were not washed. 4:30 in the morning, every morning, no exception, roll call. You have to stand like a soldier for 2 hours. One day, 2 prisoners were ordered to go to the kitchen. I was one of them to bring the soup. And when we got back, one of the supervisors asked, "Did you bring surprise soup today?" Surprise soup? Oh, it was surprise, all right. It had tufts of human hair in it. And bones. In a barrack where there were 500 male prisoners from Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Poland since 1942, they used to riot over that surprise soup. That was the only thing they had to eat. The first slave labor place was in a city called Düsseldorf in Germany. No barracks, no buildings inside. 2,000 young females, my sister and I included, were dumped in a field. And where did we sleep? On the ground. And what happened when it rained all night? They put up some pop tents, the kind you put over a picnic table so your food wouldn't get wet. It was okay for us to be wet when you're lying on the ground. In the morning, they marched us down to the river. This was the River Rhine, where freight ships used to come in. And we had to unload bricks, pile them up high along the banks. A few weeks later, another mini selection. And miracle number 3 is about to happen at this mini selection, as some businessmen from the crop manufacturer that arrived there, and the prisoners had to line up 2, 3 in a row, and they look at you. You either pass the fence, the wire fence, or they send you back. So here is what happened. I wrote about it. My sister is already on the other side being accepted, and the guard sends me back. And one of the men from the crop manufacturer said, "Nein, das ist die beste Ware. No, that's the best quality." Over I went with my sister. A few weeks later, that area was heavily bombed, and over 350 of the girls were burned in the tents. Working for the crop manufacturer was a blessing because we were fed in the factory and not by the Nazis. And they had a sub camp. They had barracks, they had bunks, they had a kitchen and water. That didn't last very long. The Allies were bombing very, very heavily, nighttime, daytime, all the time. One day they made us halt near the sidewalk. The air raid sounded. I understand German because I speak Yiddish, and it's similar. So I overheard this little boy, 6 or 7 years of age, calling his mom, "Come and see, the idiots are here." You know something? At 92, I have not yet seen an idiot. The point I'm trying to make, he neither did he. Why? Because there isn't one. I've seen children, I've seen adults that are challenged, but that doesn't mean they're idiots. Where does a child pick up that kind of behavior? Never ever is a child born racist. Never. Racism is a learned attitude. So where do they learn that? In grade 1 from their teacher or grade 2? No. What children learn in preschool is what they bring into school, whether it's here or thousands of miles away. Every child is a product of his or her environment. Now we're into October. We worked 6 days a week. Only Sunday we did not work. We worked from early in the morning till it got dark. We got back to the camp that evening. We had a big surprise. Smoke and rubbish were waiting. That day the Allies had thrown small bombs called phosphorus bombs. They don't make a hole in the ground, but as they fall, they ignite, and they spread like wildfire. All the buildings were made out of wood, and they burned to the ground. A fear that we had that night, I hope that your children will never have. Why was that? We heard in the factory from some of the German civilians that a camp burned down through bombing. They took the prisoners out to the field and shot them. Well, they didn't, not to us. What they did, they put us in a hole in the ground for the winter. What kind of hole? A dirt hole, a dark hole. The kitchen burned down, but it had a cement floor. So from underneath it, at some point, dirt was taken out. There was some straw down there. Maybe they stored some potatoes or some vegetable, root vegetable down there. We didn't know. However, they put us in there. 518 of us in that dirt hole, totally dark. Sleeping on the straw, just like pigs. The straw started to rot. Those young females didn't go outside after it got dark. By that time, we knew what the bullies were doing. Their pastime was rape. They didn't come into that hole. The sanitary conditions were appalling. We slept down there. And the straw was also used as a toilet. No water, no toilet paper. Well, they had a new challenge to deal with, and that was body lice. I knew of head lice, never heard of body lice. Check it out on the internet. They're very different from head lice. They're carriers of various disease. We're into 1945, and there is snow on the ground. What were the conditions? In Auschwitz-Birkenau, when they stripped us naked, they gave us a pair of wooden clogs. that didn't fit. No socks, no underwear. We are dirty, we are wet. 4:30 in the morning, we had to get out of that hole. And they marched us in the snow. In the factory, we heard rumors that they're going to take us away from there. And the reason for that was the Russian forces were coming closer to that part of Germany. They didn't want us to be free. They took us away. That was the final journey, which I will share with you after a few slides. This is what I tell your kids. Don't go out and judge, because every German was not a Nazi. What you see on the screen was carried out by the Romanian Black Iron Guard. They were the Nazis. They killed the Jewish people before the German Nazis got there. What is that train? A train that has no destination, just goes up and down the tracks till people die in a sealed boxcar. After 60 years after the Holocaust, the Romanian government had announced publicly it never happened there. So why did they wait 60 years? In 2007, as I returned to hell, Romania was part of it, and I was devastated to see the destruction they carried out. Why did they wait 60 years to say it didn't happen? Why do people say it didn't happen? And this is my feelings. It's easier for people to live in a denial than having a look at the truth. Some truths is very ugly, and this is one of those truths. It's very ugly. People don't want to see it. Ukrainian police, they were given orders by the Gestapo. If a mother holds a baby in her arm, shoot the baby. And the bullet will go through to the mother. You save a bullet that way. In September of 1942, in 2 days, 32,000 men, women, and children were shot. One by one by one. Can I judge those people? No, because many of them also fell victims. They were part of the 5 million. But having said that, something was missing in some of the Eastern European countries. Compassion. Had there been compassion among those nations, I wouldn't be sitting here, and you wouldn't see those slides. They would have acted like Bulgaria did. Bulgaria was also occupied. They weren't going to be bystanders. The bishop, the churches, the farmers, it was a community effort to stand up against injustice. I only know one other country, as I mentioned earlier, Denmark. Compassion. Your children that come into this school or any other school from an environment where they see compassion and feel it will never be a bully or a bystander. Because those children were taught preschool the value of having respect for diversity. Respect is something they cannot buy. They have to earn it. and they see respect in the home, if they do. That's what they bring into school. Mass execution in the capital of Hungary, the Arrow Cross. In September of 2007, filmmaker from Toronto, his wife and my book editor from Muskoka flew into the capital of Hungary. At the hotel, they knew we were doing a documentary film. They were notified ahead of time. At the hotel, they told us to go down to the river. There is a memorial there. 28 days of hell started right there, on the banks of the Dunabi. Don Gray, in the yellow jacket, he was trying to get me to talk. All I could say, I'm devastated. And I was. I knew that some of them, not all, I'm not speaking for the whole country, I say some, hated the Jewish people. So what happens to hate if it's left unchecked? It turns into rage. And rage that gave them the power to commit genocide. 20,000 Jewish people, whole families, taken down to the banks. They were ordered to take their clothes off. Those people's clothes were sent to Germany. They were shot and pushed into the river. How do you deal with that in a country where you were born? Where my mom was born, huge families. Jewish people lived there since about 1900 years, close to 2,000 years. And they lived in peace. Well, they were still the Austrian Empire before they were destroyed. How do you deal with that? How do you look into the eyes of the dark side of humanity? How? I knew what I was going to find in Auschwitz, nothing. But going back to my birthplace, 7 hours by train east of here, and you had a family once, and 56 relatives, I have their name on a list, because my mom was one out of 8 siblings. There's nobody waiting for you. No one. There were 13,000 Jewish people living there. There were 20 elderly in 2007. So why were they there? They went to die there, where their ancestors are buried. So we are not the target there now. It's the Roma people that are, the gypsies. And of course, the Syrian refugees were not allowed, and they were, the way they treated them when they tried to get in there, it's devastating. Last year in Edmonton at the university, they introduced me to 2 Hungarian students, 1 male and 1 female. The female had only been there for the first year in Edmonton. She was telling me she went home the year before, the first year, for Christmas, and she was scared. She also shared with me that fall there was an election. 14 Nazis were elected into Parliament. So when I came back to Bracebridge, I flew in from Toronto. My son picked me up and drove me home. And I told my book editor, Ron Jakes. He said, yeah, I saw that online. So where are they heading? A beautiful country. It was once called the Venice of Europe. Where are they heading? I feel sorry for the elderly. I really do. Now, more women than men died in Auschwitz-Birkenau. So one might ask, what was their crime? Their crime was they were mothers, they had children. So it didn't matter how able they were to work as a slave laborer, they had a child, they went to the left. My father was sent, the man had to line up in a different column, so he was held, one brother of mine, the older brother, went to the gas chamber. My younger brother ended up somewhere else, and my father was sent to Germany. That's where he ended up, and that's where he died. He only lived 6 months. He died of starvation. And an exercise I do with your children about hate, also about people dying. They know that people die for various reasons. But what saddens me, how many children say to others, I hate you. They put their hands up. And then I'm asking them, how many of you don't like it if somebody tells you, I hate you? Then more hands go up. So when people think that the child says, I hate you, they don't know what they're talking about it. They are very much aware, otherwise there wouldn't be more hands going up. They don't like it. So why are they doing things and saying things to people they don't want others to say to them? You know why? The golden rules are not taught in school. And that should be part of the curriculum. Do unto others as you would want them do unto you. There wouldn't be a bully in your school. There wouldn't be. It's not too late, though. Lisa, come on, that would be a good thing to start. A new curriculum. Part of a new curriculum. Heather, you two could work together on that. That is a word that needs to be eliminated. When a grade 6 student writes to me from London, Ontario, here is what he says. My mom always yells. She says, I hate when you leave your backpack in the hallway. Big deal. Wouldn't that be more productive if she would say to her son, would you mind putting it over there? Hate should be stricken, eliminated from every word of possible. I hate the weather, I hate this, I hate peanut butter. Now, I've never had peanut butter sandwiches, but I don't hate it, I just don't like it. Wouldn't that be better if we teach our children, I don't like? It's for their best interest, believe me. The final journey, Bergen-Belsen. Anne Frank and her sister died there. The barrack my sister and I ended up in, there wasn't a chair to sit on or a bunk to lie on. All prisoners were on the floor. What kind of floor? Not the kind of floor your children sit on. Beautiful, clean floor. Some in some high schools, if it's large, they sit on green pads. That floor they put us in on was covered with diarrhea. By the time we got there, dysentery was an epidemic. They had a tummy infection from drinking dirty water. I went outside to look around, hoping I would find a place that better. The ground outside looked like the barrack floor. That's outside. A British soldier bulldozing the corpses from the hills into trenches. 104,000 died in Bergen-Belsen. Starvation, dehydration, and disease. I walked around there. I wanted to see if I would recognize a face, someone I had known before. You wouldn't even know they were once human. Only the eyes stuck out of the socket. I stood there, thinking about all those people that died. You don't know who they are. They had a name once. They were part of a loved one. As I walked away from that area, I saw a young girl, my sister's age. She was wobbling from side to side, very badly skeletoned. Her face looked familiar. I went close up to her. I was in total shock. That girl lived a block away from where we lived. She was my younger brother's secret girlfriend. Why secret? We weren't allowed to date. My 3 siblings that were married through matchmaking. My brother and I were friends, very close friends, and we used to share our secrets. I managed to ask her, have you seen anyone of my family? She said, yes. I saw Lazar. He was 18. I saw him in a camp, pushing a cart with other prisoners. Now, you might think I would have asked where. I didn't. I walked away. A couple of days later, I said to my sister, I'm going to go out and find her. I was too late. She was no longer with us. That bothered me for a very long time. I would have liked to have known where the bulldozer bulldozed his bones, or where the wind had blown his ashes. Once a year, we assemble in every institution, and we give thanks to those that sacrificed their lives for our freedom. For me, Remembrance Day is every day. Every day is Remembrance Day. I have nowhere to go. I searched in Europe through the Red Cross. They had no information. In 1952, I searched in Canada through the Red Cross. They had no information about my brothers. That's the only one. I know he died in one of the camps, but I don't know which one. And when I see in families how siblings don't get along, they fight, they bully each other, it bothers me. Because my brother and I were friends, and I wish he would have lived. Six days before the Allies came in, the Gestapo had given orders, 0 supply. By that time, I was very sick. We had no water. The water well were destroyed through bombing. And the one small metal mug of dirty water soup, just like in Auschwitz, they took it away. They wanted to speed up our death because the Allies were nearby. How did they survive this for 6 days? Approximately 500 died every day. How did my sister and I survive? As I mentioned before, in the beginning, the legacy that my mom passed down to me kept me alive. Never ever to give up hope. I couldn't let the Nazi bullies defeat me. They have already stripped us of human rights, human dignity. Everything that was in their power, they took away. Now, things that they took away is no big deal, because when people have money, they can buy things. What money cannot buy is another family. What I'm asking your children every day, don't take your families for granted, never. There are challenges, yes. The challenges don't hurt us. It's the choices we make, how we deal with them. April 15th, 11 o'clock in the morning, we were liberated by the British and Canadians that came in from Holland. I knew I was free from being killed. Never ever free from the memory of it, of such a crime against humanity. There have been many wars through the centuries, thousands of years. Territorial wars. Never in history had there been such a premeditated, systematic annihilation. Never as in World War II. It wasn't a war of greed or oil or territory. The Jewish people didn't have territory, and we didn't have oil. Racism and annihilation. If we, parents and grandparents, have a responsibility, don't help our children to eliminate hate. I can only ask you to think about this, what's happening right now. I don't even have to mention areas you're familiar with it. Hate causes war, not love. I'm asking you, please, to send your children to school the way you want to see them as adults. The teachers can't fix it. It's our responsibilities. Teachers' responsibilities are to provide the tools of education. We have to help them to pick it up and use it. I remember another miracle out of the ashes. Orders were given that all prisoners were to be shot April 15, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we were liberated at 11 o'clock in the morning. Had they not come in when they did, I wouldn't be sharing with you my life story, my journey. Soldiers came in, bent down on the floor. Prisoners that were not too badly skeleton were receiving a red cross on the forehead, indicating to the ambulance driver that those were the prisoners to be taken away first. We came there towards the end. They took us to a tent to be disinfected. They converted the building outside Bergen boundaries, made it into a hospital. That's where we were treated. Typhoid fever and dysentery. 14,000 died. They were beyond medical help, but they died free. Couple of months later, the Red Cross arrived from Sweden to give us some advice. You can go back to the country where you originated, or you stay in Germany in a displacement camp. Somebody is going to claim you. I didn't want to stay there one day longer than I had to. I certainly didn't want to go back to my birthplace because I knew they were racist. They were allies with the Nazis. I made the choice for my sister as well, and that was a good choice. We went to Sweden. In Sweden, I regained faith in humanity through their actions. They didn't tell us what they were going to do, they showed us. And what was that? The same thing I'm asking your children in the school to show each other. Acceptance, respect. They weren't concerned about religion or culture. They treated us as their brothers and sisters of the same family. Do we have the right to judge people by their religion? Do we have the right to label people? No, we don't. My grandson went through that. In Bracebridge at the high school. Well, one of the bullies called him a stupid Jew. Now his grandparents from the mother's side are Catholic. I am Jewish, so therefore he has to be stupid. How stupid? I asked him, Rudy, did you go to the principal? He said, no. I went to the newspaper. Why? Every family get in the paper in the mailbox. They don't even have to buy it. What bothered my grandson, that teacher was standing beside the two students, a bully and a young grade 10 like my grandson. So what did that teacher do? Nothing. He became a bystander. He remained silent. He gave his power to the bully. That's what bystanders do. So what happened to a young, stupid Jew? He's not Jewish, he was raised. My son was baptized in the Scandinavian church in Montreal. And his mom is raised by Catholic parents. It doesn't matter what he is, he knows who he is, and that's the important thing. He doesn't suffer of low self-esteem. At age 17, he entered Queen's University. At 21, he graduated with 2 degrees, human biology and kinesiology. You have to be pretty stupid to achieve that, don't you think so? Why are we labeling others? Is it color or culture or religion that makes us different? None of the above. The only thing that does make us different is our attitude. Not somebody's religion. And that's why I'm asking you to help me, as I said. Send your children to school the way you want to see them as adults. To eliminate some of this behavior towards each other. I cannot change the past. Nobody has that power. The power lies in your children because they're the future. And the last generation that will ever be part of this type of assembly, their children never will. Never. In October of 1945, I met a young Swede. Challenges? Yeah. I'm Jewish and he's not. He was going to school to become an engineer. I'm 21 that month and I've not yet been inside the classroom. I make up for it now though. And I'm learning every day. So what is the moral about that young Swede? He didn't lock himself in. He didn't lock me out. He gave himself a chance to get to know someone that was different. What happens when children lock others out? And it happens in my own community. And this mother, she used to work with the Nipissing University. She drove me up to the university one day after my 90th birthday. I spoke there. They adopted 2 Canadian African babies. Those children, those 2 boys, went to the same public school with my 3 grandchildren. The neighbor has 1 boy. This mother asked, "Why aren't you playing with Gary?" And the boy said, "We wanted to, but his mom said that he cannot play with us because we are black." So what is the legacy that this mom passed down to her son, that he's better? The oldest boy graduated in biology at Nipissing University. I talked to him yesterday. And he's going to New Brunswick to further his education. Locking others out, they might lock out their best friend they will ever have in a lifetime. It can happen. Here is my best friend I ever had. And I say had. My husband had a short journey. At age 35, driving on Major Mackenzie in Richmond Hill, that's just north of Toronto, he was hit by someone who was drinking and driving. 2.5 years later, before he turned 38, he passed away. His body is gone, but not his spirit. His spirit will be alive as long as I'm alive. The gift that my husband gave me long before we were married, it's not the kind of gift that you can buy with money. And that is the only thing that I have to bring into your school and give to your children, just like Rudy gave to me. Unconditional acceptance. The love and compassion I received like I never had before, ever. I was different from him. He used to say to me, "It's okay to be different. What's not okay when we're indifferent?" Why was our marriage successful? Not because it was the same of everything. I was born into an environment where you had to marry someone. It has to be exact the same, fundamentalist or liberal or conservative, whatever. It had to be the same. If the same is so good, then why is the divorce rate so high? We think that everything of the same is the best. It isn't, because we don't give ourselves a chance to learn from other cultures, from other religions. You don't have to live it, but it's okay to learn, to be aware of things, and be able to pass it on. I'm just grateful to have loved. It's better to have loved than never had loved at all. Loved and lost than never have loved at all. Because the legacy was passed down to my son. And then he passes it down to his generation to follow him. That's what it's about. It's not about I, it's not about me. What we need to think and what we need to teach our children is we. Not I or me, it's we. Because only we together as a people can we achieve peace. Only we. Not him or her or I. It's we. For 50 years I was silent. It didn't heal me. Silence does not heal. Having given the opportunity across Canada and part of the States, over 1.5 million listeners, your children have become my power of healing. And for that I'm grateful. I couldn't do it on my own. It didn't work for 50 years. And that's the challenge. Never again, never. Never shall a child die because it's hated. Never. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity and allowing me to keep my family spirit alive. I can't do it by myself. I need you. I need your children. And may God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.